But so AI, that's a quick diversion there. So AI is being advertised, and actually he's working on Eyes Wide Shut from 1996 onwards. So did it take the 3 years until the film released to make? Because as far as I know from this film, it was quite a strained production, and Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise had signed onto it with completely open-ended contracts. So they basically belonged to Stanley Kubrick until he said they were done with the film.
Yeah, I think that was very canny of Stanley Kubrick. At this point, he knew himself. His overrunning productions were now kind of legendary. So he'd got this written in. It did cause friction. Luckily, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, they were keen to stay on. They wanted the challenge, I believe.
Well, it must have been an incredibly challenging set of roles for the pair of them, given that they were married at the time as well. Did this have anything to do with the falling apart of their marriage? I wouldn't be shocked, because the kind of emotions that they would have had to be drawing from, as well as the themes of the film explicitly being about the kind of underlying sexual jealousy that lies beneath any happy marriage, that being brought straight to the top for them to play out on screen, I can imagine they couldn't help but take a bit of that home with them.
No, it's Stanley Kubrick merrily mixed reality and the films. He knows that you will carry your real-world associations of someone into the film. So, for instance, Malcolm McDowell, known for playing a young schoolboy in If, so he knows that sort of innocent schoolboy idea is carried through to his character of Alex.
So that's very, very, very clever of him, very cynical.
Exactly.
But if you're trying to get the best performance out of somebody, then you do have to be a bit cynical that way.
Exactly. And Eyes Wide Shut, absolutely, he wanted to play on the tension, the idea that this is a real-life couple, and it's Tom Cruise cheating on Nicole. He was aware of that. He also knew that he could get a huge buzz around the film, draw people in, get that heat generated around the real-life couple and how much they're going to do. And there's a lot of speculation, quite rabid speculation, furthered by how little information he gave anyone. Some of the stories around it are that he did want them to, he wanted them to actually have sex on camera. This is obviously false. But he had wanted them to genuinely get high and also take ecstasy.
Nicole Kidman goes quite far in this film. I was surprised. The first shot of the film is her stripping, which I thought, oh, Stanley, you cad.
You know how Tarantino often writes things to play out his fantasies?
Fantasies, yep.
I did get a little bit of an impression that perhaps Stanley Kubrick was just like, so I have Nicole Kidman here.
On an open contract, and she's willing to do anything.
I mean, I suspect the best case for that is probably Clockwork Orange.
We know what he was getting up to with Clockwork Orange, although we didn't mention it.
We didn't. Just briefly, in case anyone's curious, Stanley auditioned a lot of actresses for the many topless women in that film and recorded their auditions with a secret camera. But in fairness, he did give them jobs. So
it's all fair. That's the sleaziest. Even outside of screwing people over with contracts, there's easily the single sleaziest thing.
Oh yeah,
that I know of in his contract, in his career, and I will condemn that entirely.
Yeah, it's kind of grim. The stories about wanting them to take ecstasy, I find that a bit more believable, to be honest.
I mean, it would counter the reputation that he had, that he was difficult to work with.
Please get high for me. This was an interesting experience, watching this film, because even having had hints of what the plot was about from you two, it still was not what I expected.
Oh.
I was not expecting most of the film to be Tom Cruise tries and fails desperately to cheat on Nicole Kidman.
Debated. He hooked you in.
Yeah,
you thought it was going to be TNA all the way.
He really did, but Tom Cruise is quite spectacularly bad at cheating on his wife in this film. He keeps getting just about there. He almost gets AIDS at one point, but he just can't take the step.
Yeah.
He can't make that final move into becoming an AIDS patient.
But the point of the film is not about the actual act of cheating on one's spouse. I think that one of the running themes throughout the whole thing is about temptation, isn't it? And
Oh, yes.
it's about the lure of vice more generally, I think.
And I thought that my personal interpretation of the main theme of the film was women deserve less. Because Nicole Kidman, through the entire film, is an awful harpy bitch.
Didn't you love that though?
No. No, I thought... Obviously, her performance was fantastic, and the character was very, very interesting. But the way that she tries to hurt Bill, Tom Cruise's character, is really evil and really unnecessarily cruel.
Well, it's both nasty and uncalled for, because he's as he says, he's done nothing but try and be good to her. You know, he finds himself in some awkward situations, perhaps, but in the end, he does sort of live up to what he says, albeit due to some circumstantial things.
Well, he tries to reason with her, which doesn't work. I mean, I just thought this, okay, we're not meant to like her. She is being an absolute harpy, but it felt so true. Like this is masculine and feminine interacting, and there's a hell of a clash.
I picked up on that immediately. I'm just like, I have experienced this kind of dynamic before, where I have tried to reason with an angry and upset woman, and I'm just like, I just heard what Tom Cruise was saying and sort of laughed about it, just like, oh, Tom, what are you doing?
I've not the exact conversation, but that
No,
exact
of course not.
situation.
The dynamic of it.
I have been in it where you're having a friendly conversation, you're having a bit of a laugh, then she asks you something, and you give an honest answer, and that's not good enough. The honest answer is not good enough, and so she has to push it, and then in the course of pushing it, she gets herself angry, and then decides that she's going to take it out on you. And you as the man are sat there basically having to take it, or defend yourself, which makes the situation worse. I, being the fool I am, have always defended myself, which makes the situation worse, but for my own honour and dignity, I cannot allow myself to just be insulted cruelly to my face for no reason when it always comes completely out of nowhere as well. So the film, in that way, was really uncomfortable to watch the whole way through, because it felt so real and familiar.
Yeah.
Not the almost having sex with an AIDS prostitute, the arguments.
I think that it has to be very real, because it makes you really sympathise with Bill, with Tom Cruise's character. I think that...
But we're meant... I'd be very interested. What's the woman's perspective on this? Although you're more liable to give the gay reading.
Yeah, how can I say?
I mean, there is the one gay character in the film, because another running theme throughout this is that there's an underlying sexual tension to almost every single interaction that Tom Cruise has, outside of his interactions with Ziegelman and...
Ziegler.
Ziegler.
Same sort of vibe.
Yeah. Outside of his interactions with Ziegler and with Nightingale, the pianist, every other interaction he has some kind of underlying sexuality to it, including when he's speaking to the hotel receptionist, who is so camp and so gay and so clearly trying to hit on him and excited to talk to Tom Cruise.
I love that scene.
That was really funny.
It added a good bit of levity when the film needed it, in a way, didn't it? It was getting so heavy to the point where it really pushes you to have a laugh. And it was the perfect time for that scene to appear.
Yeah, even given the subject matter of what they're talking about, which seemed to be the implied beating and disappearing of Nick Nightingale after he had let too much information slip.
Gosh, woman's point of view. I don't know. It's well, I don't think the film ever concerns itself with a woman's point of view, but as
well, I'd be interested.
Can it work for a female audience?
All of the women who watched the film, in that scene where it was Alice versus Bill, were they on Alice's side, or did they see it as, unnecessarily cruel to Bill, who otherwise is just trying to be a nice guy.
Oh, no, I think you totally understand the dynamic. You know why she is responding that way, and you're fully aware she's being an arse.
But as well,
and you get why she's You just know she is needling him, and he's falling into the trap.
If I'm going to try and put myself in her shoes, they've gotten back from this big party that Ziegler had been throwing. She'd been excited and made to feel sexual, made to remember some of the mystique that comes with the early part of a relationship where it's all about the physical. There's you're not girlfriend, you're not married, you're lovers with one another. And she gets back, and she's back in her boring, mundane life where she's a mum and a housewife, and she's not being satisfied. She's not being thrilled in that same way. And so she's trying to push it so that she can get a rise out of Bill for either sexual excitement or just the thrill of being able to get an unexpected emotion from him.
I want to stand up for Alice a little more, because I think there's one extra element to that. Obviously.
Oh, also, Bill was very clearly flirting with two models at the party.
That was it.
So he's not entirely blameless. And if he hadn't been called away to help an ODing hooker for Ziegler, would he have found a quiet room with them?
You don't know. She held good, but I think the fact that she's probably going in there thinking, I enjoyed that frisson, but I think he might have cheated, but she doesn't want to declare it. I think that's bubbling under. So,
but at the same time, he had already noticed that she was dancing with another man as well. So which comes first in their near infidelity with one another?
Yeah, I think the point of it is that all these relationships are fraught with tension and suspicion. Like, if you view this sounds so cynical, doesn't it? If you view your partner as incredibly desirable, which you want to do, you're going to be aware that they have options and people are trying to hit, and you're like, you've got that tension.
And that seems to be what annoys her a little bit as well, is that she's annoyed that he doesn't get jealous of her.
Yeah, he should have been a lot more. He should have been angry at her.
He should have been angry at her. He should have been threatening to get into a fight with that Hungarian guy who had been hitting on her.
It's actually,
women really like it when men fight over them.
It's a very astute observation by Stanley to have this in, because this is one of those things that as a man you wouldn't necessarily think of, that being jealous is a good thing, because, you know, if you're sort of socially and pro-socially minded, jealousy is a negative thing, it's a bad trait to have, and actually being reasonable and rational is good. But also the jealousy functions as a sort of way of reinforcing someone's self-esteem in a relationship, and showing that you care about them, and showing that you think they have worth and they're worth fighting for in the first place. I think that that's how she's sort of understanding it. And you know, the fact that he's also a doctor, and to be a doctor, you sort of have to be a little bit of a robot. You kind of have to be very erring on the side of rationality over being overly sentimental. And so his character is sort of the perfect foil to this, in a way, in that he's approaching it in a way that we can all identify as being quite reasonable. However, the situation doesn't actually call for a reasonable response, it calls for a human response, which he doesn't give her. And it's one of those things that you need to be quite astute to put that in a film. It's one of the things that people don't necessarily even notice going throughout their entire life, let alone can recognise as a thing and then choose to put it in a film. I thought it was quite clever, actually.
It was, and even the way that you were just describing that, then I had a flashback to 1,000 different situations where I'd been exactly in that moment.
You should have just explained calmly and clearly and logically why you were right, Harry. Why didn't that work?
It never works.
The correct thing to do in that situation is to get up, walk away, and say, I'll talk to you when you're a bit more calm.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.